This is Trigger, Figure 2 from Series 2. File name Austin Buchanan. Primary specialty 11 Bravo, automatic rifleman. Secondary skills 19 Delta, cavalry scout. 11 Charlie, indirect fire infantryman. Birthplace Fort Riley, Kansas. Rank and affiliation Staff Sergeant in Action Force. Typical Army brats of a third-generation infantryman, Trigger and his sister spent most of their childhoods being shunted from military base to military base. They saw little of their father during his deployments and were raised primarily by their aunt after their mother died. The day after his high school graduation, Trigger enlisted in the United States Army. During Trigger's one tour, he served with distinction while battling pirates in Laos, helping evacuate the U.S. consulate in Panama, and participating in hostage rescue operations in Chile. Due to his actions, Trigger was given a special commendation and recommended to the 101st Airborne Screaming Eagles by his commanding officer. Unfortunately, Trigger's arrival at Fort Campbell coincided with the dissolution of the United States. Trigger opted to remain in Tennessee, though a later review of documents reveals that although he continued to serve with the Republic of Tennessee's military, he neither formally enlisted nor applied for citizenship in the Republic. He was last stationed in Fort Tennyson, formerly NSA Mid-South Naval Base, before beginning his affiliation with Action Force. When you think of the U.S. Army, probably the first job you think of is an Army infantryman. Army infantrymen are the mainland combat force and are known as 11 Bravo. In the Army, the cavalry scout acts as the eyes and ears, gathering battlefield information about the enemy. There is perhaps no more important soldier in a combat situation than the scouts who gather information about enemy positions, vehicles, weapons, and activity. These soldiers are quite literally the first line of defense for Army units. They not only scout enemy positions, they repair and maintain the vehicles used for this work. Like their fellow combat troops, they load and fire weapons, secure and stow ammunition, and gather information about terrain and enemy equipment. Their scouting duties include conducting mounted and dismounted navigation, collecting data about tunnels and bridges, and serving as members of observation and listening posts. Cavalry scouts also assist with the laying and removal of mines, and use the protocols of concealment and camouflage. Cavalry scouts can also advance their skills and become snipers. Army cavalry scouts are also known for their hard-charging attitude and wry sense of humor. In the Army Military Occupational Specialty, or MOS, 11 Charlie, indirect fire infantryman, is a member of a mortar squad, section, or platoon. The mortar is an infantry unit's most powerful weapon. These soldiers perform some of the most dangerous jobs in the Army. They fire and recover anti-personnel and anti-tank mines, and locate and neutralize mines in live minefields. This MOS is also responsible for navigating between points on the ground, orientating maps, and operating and maintaining communications equipment. Trigger's weapon of choice is the M249 Squad Automatic Weapon. However, the Army has announced, as of April 20th of 2022, that it will procure the new XM250 automatic rifle, which will eventually replace the M249 Squad Automatic Weapon, through a contract signed with Sig Sauer, a firearms manufacturer. It's expected that the first unit of soldiers involved in close quarters combat will be equipped with the new system in the fourth quarter of 2023. Soldiers involved in close quarters combat include 11 Bravo, 19 Delta, 12 Bravo, 68 Whiskey, and 13 Foxtrot. Also, the new XM5 will replace the M4 carbine. The new rifles will be paired with the XM157 fire control system, which will increase accuracy and lethality for the close combat force. The XM157 integrates, among other things, a variable magnification optic, backup etched reticle, laser rangefinder, ballistic calculator, atmospheric sensor suite, compass, visual and infrared aiming lasers, and a digital display overlay. Pretty cool. However, like most contracts with the military, we'll just have to wait and see if this actually gets implemented. In the lore of the Valaverse, it makes sense that Trigger would continue to stick with his M249 because they're probably very plentiful in the Republic of Tennessee and some of the other republics where Action Force operates. We get our first good look into the character of Trigger in Action Force Mission Files number 2 in a story called Trigger by Bill Nedrow. We learn pretty quickly that Trigger is a laid-back kind of guy who has very little tolerance for idiots in positions of power. He's very resourceful, and he has no problem taking what he needs to get a mission done. In his travels through Tennessee, he ends up taking care of several scarabs and other swarm troopers who have been menacing the place, and runs into Condor and a few other members of what will become Action Force. Right off the bat, it's a match made in heaven. Condor and Trigger are thick as thieves, and we see throughout the mission files that these two work really well together. Although Trigger has an easygoing nature and a good sense of humor, when it comes time to lay the pain down, he's not afraid to make things go boom. Throughout the mission files, we see that Trigger has made himself an indispensable right-hand man to Condor, and it's really cool to see how these two work together. The misadventures continue with Trigger and Condor in Action Force novel Broken Alliances by Bill Nedrow. One thing we learned from Nedrow's novel is you don't mess with Trigger's shades. That's about it for Trigger. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and we will see you in the very near future.